Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Taos of Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive, picking up the pieces of the mess on Sunday afternoon out at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. We will be doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour beginning on Wednesday, brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. I will have these Ravens scratch-offs to give away. I like the matte finish on these. We'll see if they're a little luckier than the Ravens have been thus far at 1-3. We're picking up at Fade. These this week will be at Costas next week. The whole schedule up out at Baltimore Positive. Checking in now on the GBMC hotline here. Luke Jones, who will be out in Owings Mills this week, trying to figure out. I don't even know where to begin, dude, right? Like Lamar, the injury, the defense, Marlon Humphrey, Roquan Smith, the entire defensive line decimated, the loss itself, 1-3. On and on, Ronnie Stanley, on and on and on. How did I get to him last? I don't know, dude. What a disaster. And people were saying maybe Wembley in 17 or the Lee Evans Billy Cundiff game. I don't remember anything quite like the segments we're about to do and whatever the purple therapy this city's going to go through this week.
Well, first of all, everyone needs to take a deep breath because that's necessary at a point like this where you are coming off of, wow, that was as bad as it's been. And really go back to the second half of the Detroit game. I was struggling to think when was the last time, not counting the end of 21, the end of 22 when Lamar was hurt, but I was trying to think the last time the Ravens have had so much go wrong and they have played so poorly over a 6-quarter stretch when you go back to the second half of the Detroit game. And it's a wow. It absolutely is. Now, it's late September going into October. There are 13 games to go. The season is not over, and anyone who says otherwise is being a little too fatalistic about this. That said, they're 1-3. They're 1-3 for the first time in a decade. They're 1-3 with a team that entered the season and just 3 weeks ago had a 15-point lead in Buffalo with 5 minutes to go. They entered the season as the wildly popular Super Bowl favorite.
They're the biggest story in the league this week for all the wrong reasons, right?
Sure. Well, and I will say as an aside, I thought it was absolutely insane to see the overwhelming pundit, picking of the Ravens in this game, considering Kansas City is Kansas City, and they had even more urgency. Even though
dude, we're 2 for 2. You picked against them, and I picked against them, right?
Yeah,
We both picked against them.
I didn't pick them to get their butts kicked the way they did. No one saw that coming,
But we
right?
thought they'd be 1-3. Both of us began the
Sure.
day Sunday
And
with predictions full out on Baltimore Positive. If you call our 800 number, we'll have our picks. I'm making that up, but we picked this. We both thought this was once the defensive line starts falling apart, you can't stop the run against a guy like Patrick Mahomes. I didn't feel good about this because of that. And then once the game started, I'll let you pick that pros up because like losing players along the way, including Lamar, but it just was as bad as I had feared.
yeah, well, I'm not going to give myself credit for picking Kansas City to win when I didn't think it was going to be anything like this. That's I'm not going to be disingenuous and say I foresaw a butt whooping because I
Well,
didn't.
6 injuries or 7 injuries, however many you add them up. I don't have enough fingers.
But even before the injuries, they played poorly. They played poorly last week when Matabike was the big one and Van Noy as well. But it's just it's discouraging. It's alarming. I think for as much as you can point to it being early, like I just said it was, and the fact there are 13 games left, and it's absolutely relevant to note that the schedule will soften up as, excuse me, my cat is being a problem right
I
now.
I love that your cat's part of the show.
I don't like it right
enough.
now. Sorry. That's great for everyone on YouTube, everyone on radio saying, what the heck? But I think when you just look at how this has, I don't know if spiraled is the right term, but yeah, it is because they had a 15-point lead in Buffalo and they looked through the first 3.5 quarters of this season, they looked every bit the part of the best team in football. And yeah, okay, the defense wasn't great through the first 3 quarters of that game. You're playing the Bills, right? I mean, everything was on schedule, right? I mean, in terms of how they looked, in terms of Lamar, in terms of Derrick Henry, in terms of just everything. And to just see how it's gone so south here, and now with the injuries on top of that, that's where you point to it and say, okay, you're 1-3. Are they fully capable of climbing out of this? 1,000%. And you're not going to argue with me otherwise, because they're absolutely capable of that. In part because I'm just not that big of a believer in the rest of the division either. Pittsburgh acknowledging their win over in Ireland Sunday morning, acknowledging that aside, I'm still not seeing any of these teams in this division that's going to run away and hide, and the Ravens are not going to be able to catch up.
Well, I don't
But
know if
that
the Chargers
said,
are going to run away and hide either, based on
and
what I
that
saw the other, right? I
right,
mean,
right. I mean, it's
the
the
Bills
league,
are clearly a different cut, and
but
they're a
even
different cut if they're healthy too.
but even they, if you watched Red Zone, and I mean, the Saints were giving them a game for a lot into the second half of that. I mean, the league's crazy, right? We talk about it. It's a week to week league, and that's part of why, while I'm absolutely concerned, I'm not pressing the panic button at this point in time. But when you start to look at the injuries, and the fortunate thing is, other than the Matabike situation, which we still don't have long-term clarity on, other than he was out this game and obviously out for at least the next 3 games, right? I mean, even your best case scenario of whatever it is, you're talking after the bye week for him and Broderick Washington. But now you have all these other injuries. But I think the thing that concerns me, Nestor, and this was part of why I did pick Kansas City on Sunday, winning a close game, because one, they're battle tested. They're a champion. And when I say the Ravens aren't battle tested, I don't mean in the sense that they've won a ton of football games in the regular season in recent years. But we've talked about it in January. We've talked about it when they've blown fourth quarter leads. It's not really their forte to kind of be in this position. Now, they lost 3 out of 4 with a healthy Lamar in November of 2020, and they righted the ship. And that was a COVID year, is weird, all that. So it's not as though it's completely unprecedented for the Ravens to have some scuffles and some struggles with a Lamar Jackson led team or offense and football team. But when you have the defense that's just in this disastrous state that it's in right now, that's a disaster. The offense, for me, the Ronnie Stanley injury, and obviously Lamar, and we're going to have to see how that looks. It didn't look like a catastrophic hamstring injury, but is he going to play next week? Is he going to play the week after that? They had the bye after that. It's kind of looking like an early season bye is going to be just what the doctor ordered with how banged up this football team is right now. But I think what worries me more than anything is just the between the ears part of this. And I think when you start like this, there's a tendency that if you're not careful, guys can, and when I say guys, I mean players and coaches for that matter, to turn on each other. And I don't mean like in a spiteful personal way, but you start to lose trust in what you're doing, what your teammates are doing, what your coaches are doing, all that, if you're not careful. And that's where things can spiral in the sense of, okay, the 1-3 Houston Texans are coming to town Sunday. I'm picking the Ravens to win right now. I think. I mean, unless Lamar's ruled out or all these guys are ruled out. But even then, it's Houston. But you've got the Rams after that. Rams have looked pretty good, right? So you just kind of look at this thing, and it's like you have to weather this storm and find a way to win a football game next Sunday, no matter how it looks. It doesn't have to be by 4 touchdowns. You don't need to put up 40 points on the board. You don't need to pitch a shutout on defense. Just figure out a way to win, to stop the bleeding, and then you can exhale a little bit, albeit very briefly, right? Because you're only, if that happens, you're still 2-3 and in danger of being 2-4 if you don't beat the Rams. But I just, for me, when you have as much going wrong as it's going wrong right now, I do worry about the mental part of it. I said, and I wrote this at BaltimorePositive.com in my 12 Ravens thoughts going into Sunday's game, that I didn't really think this was a must-win game for either team, but it was an under the hood game. And what concerns me is you see how Kansas City came out. Yeah, they got Xavier Worthy back. That absolutely helped their offense. There's no question about that, and I thought it would. But you see how they responded. And then with the Ravens, and obviously the injuries piling it up, made it even worse. But after that first drive, I mean, very little to write home about that was positive about this game. I mean, good opening drive, and then after that, they defense held them to a couple field goals early, but then the dam just completely broke after that. But what's their identity? How are they going to circle the wagons and pick each other up through this, right? I mean, those are questions, and I don't say that about the Ravens. Like, that's just a general thing when you're going
Well, when
through
they
a
had Ray
start like
Lewis, you never
this.
asked that question. Now I
No,
don't know who their Ray Lewis. I really don't. And look, man, I'm not making excuses for them at all, right?
really
Like
banged up. I
in
mean,
any way. Like Humphrey, Roquan, Matabike, Ronnie Stanley, you start to take away center field
Isle
on
Van,
this team.
okay, center field, sure.
You know what I mean? You're taking away, and then Lamar at the end, and whether that was he's had enough today and it's gamesmanship in any sort of, I mean,
I'd like to think that's not the case. I mean, it's not as though they weren't down 5 touchdowns at that point in time. There was still enough time at that point that you absolutely could
yeah.
mount a comeback. So
Now Ronnie
I don't buy
Stanley,
that.
I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's
You
the
know,
ankle. I mean, it's the ankle, and you and I haven't had a chance to talk since Friday's practice, but he was listed as limited. But as far as the open part of practice, he was off on a side field working with the trainer, and he wasn't moving well. I mean, and I think it's very apparent how quickly he left that game that it just wasn't working for him. So, I mean, they've got to figure this out. And I think if there's one takeaway beyond just the overall performance, over 60 minutes and the injuries, what the heck was that first offensive drive of the second half? They had 3rd and 3 inside. CBS was like, I don't know. Nance and Romo were out to lunch in that part of the game because they kept saying it was
they
third
were
and
out.
one.
They're not very good, man. It
I
is
mean,
just an
well,
ass
I don't want to
kissing
go.
for hours. No, it's just
I want to go
everybody's
off.
great. Everybody's the best. Everything's great.
I'm trying to
Everything.
make a point here, but
Yeah, but yeah.
it was 3rd and 3, right? The TV listed it as 3rd and 1. If you follow like the NFL, their GSIS website that has the live box score and updated stats, real time, all that, it was 3rd and 3. But it was 3rd and 3, and Kansas City had scored. It was 27-10. Why aren't you giving the ball to Derrick Henry there? What is this team trying to be? Because the way their offense is playing and has played the last couple weeks since Cleveland shut down their running game the way they did, they look like they want to be a finesse offense. I mean, that right there, and again, they're down 17. I'm not saying they win the game or they stage a comeback there, but that right there made me question, like, what's their identity right now?
Well, they don't want him on the field in those situations. That's obvious.
Why? But why? I mean, why are you in passing mode on 3rd and 3 when that should be 4 down territory there? Freaking line up in heavy, and I get it. Patrick Ricard's not out there. Line up in heavy and push the pile 2 plays in a row if you need to, and get the first down and score a touchdown.
Unless you think you can't.
Well, then that's part of the problem, because it's Derrick Henry, and even with Ronnie Stanley being out, they ran the ball plenty of times over the last 5 years successfully, even when Ronnie Stanley wasn't on the field and available.
Just having Lamar out there creates a mismatch. With the sleight of hand, in a general sense, it stresses the defense. When you take Derrick Henry off the field, you stress them less.
That boggled my mind. And look, I understand when it's obvious passing situations that, yes, you want Justice Hill out there, and Justice Hill's a good football player. He's the blitz pickup, pass protection, leak out into the flat, whatever, when you're in pass.
He carried 5 guys with him with his legs to get a first down early in the game. And I'm
he's
like,
a capable player.
Yeah, he's strong in the bottom. Yeah.
I did not like that sequence one bit in terms of where they are as a football team, and more specifically as an offense. We all agree the defense is utter disaster right now. I mean, let's face it. You can talk about the injuries other than Matabike specifically. Most of these guys that exited, other than Wiggins, let's say, have absolutely had a part in their poor play on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, Marlon Humphrey has been playing bad this year. Now, Has he been playing through some kind of nagging injury or something like that? I mean, he wasn't on the injury report
We're
this week.
picking on him early in the game.
Yeah, they went right after him, right? So, Roquan, we've talked about his up and down play at times, and how much of that is whoever's playing the will next to him. Like,
And I think who's playing in front of him too, by the way.
sure, no question. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the injuries aren't a concern. They obviously are. But I guess my point with the defense is the defense was playing poorly even before these injuries started mounting. But I don't know that there's just something, and you know me, I'm not even Mr. like, oh, Derrick Henry run for 2,000 yards this year and should carry the ball 35 times every single game, no matter what. I mean, I'm not that guy. I mean, you
It's
can
all
remember,
situational. It's a situational game, right?
but you can remember I was the guy that wasn't necessarily jumping on the table about signing Derrick Henry 2 years ago. But like, you have him. You're in this spot where it's 3rd and 3. You need a touchdown. It should be 4 down territory. And then you take him out of the game, and Lamar gets sacked, and then you're kicking a field goal there. I mean, that was soft. That was soft offense right there. I mean, that was just soft. Where's the toughness of the Ravens? So that resonated with me as something in specifically at the game within the game, the big picture within, a situation that I really didn't like. That didn't sit well with me. And I don't know. So they obviously have to get healthy. And I think they will. I mean, these aren't a bunch of season-ending, ACL tears and things of that
Yeah,
nature.
but they feel naggy enough that if you're 2-4 2 weeks from now,
Well, they'll be 2-4. I mean, the other, I mean, like I said, look at this. Look at the post-bye schedule. It softens considerably. They have over these first 4 games have arguably played, not even arguably, they're 3 of the best teams in the NFL. So I'm not saying that that's good that you haven't beaten any of them. That's obviously bad, but you also have to understand, they're not losing to scrub teams here. So the path is going to be there for them to get back on track, but got to go do it. I mean, as I'm going to write at BaltimorePositive.com, the benefit of the doubt is wearing thin very rapidly here. So, I mean, you've got to.
well, you are what your record says you are, and they're not an unlucky 1-3. We're sitting here trying to figure out what's good about it. I played that game with the baseball team the other day, and I was really tough on the baseball team over the weekend, and I'm like, yeah, like, what are they good at, right? What is this team? Not last year, Todd Monken, this, that, whatever. What as constructed right now, what are they good at on their best day? And what's the reality of these injuries and the depletion of dubious at best defense now when you start to think about, well, if they're going to play this week and the next month without the defensive line, and they're going to play maybe this week without Roquan, maybe this week without Marlon Humphrey. I don't know, man. I mean, the reason those guys make $20 million a year. Sure. They're not replaceable. And I went further down the depth chart, and these are all guys because you watched the preseason games, and I did too, sadly. But names,
you're reaching for the roster. Like, I mean, you're seeing
in a big way.
Hey, I full disclosure, I had to do that, and it wasn't so much that I didn't know who Josh Tupou was. I hadn't memorized his jersey number because he just got signed to the practice squad this week, right? I had forgotten that CJ Okoye switched from 97 in the preseason to 91, right? Because he's been on the practice squad. And while I'm aware of everyone on the practice squad, they're not at the front of my mind. They're not.
Yeah, and then they're in the game in the third quarter.
It's like, wow, sure. So yeah, I mean, just as we talked about for 6 months with this Orioles season that's finally come to an end, and we'll pick up that discussion at some point. The injuries are absolutely part of this, but there's too much else going on that I'm concerned about as well, right? And like I said, that's why I really, it seems like I'm belaboring the point, but that opening drive of the third quarter after Kansas City had driven down the field and the Ravens were about to answer, in the sense that they got to the red zone, 3rd and 3, taking Derrick Henry off the field when that should right there at 3rd and 3, you should be thinking already, this is 4 down territory. We're going for it. We have to. We're down 17. Like we've got to get something going here because our defense isn't stopping a nosebleed, right? I mean, that has to be your thinking.
Well, that's going to be their thinking for a while now, right?
But I don't understand why Like that was finesse. Like that was something a finesse team does right there. And I didn't like that. I hated that. So,
Well, you give the ball away, you don't know when you're going to get it back with this team right now.
well, I mean, yeah, and again, like I said, I mean, they even Henry had some runs on that drive, right? They came out and he ran the ball. Lamar ran the ball on the second play of that drive. It felt
Well,
like they
Romo was saying, "Don't panic, run the ball."
sure,
Right? Yeah.
sure, and it felt like they were doing that. And then they get to that spot when it's 3rd and 3, and you say, I don't care if Derrick Henry only gets 2 yards here. I'm going to go for it on 4th and 1 then, right? I mean, like that's the thought there, and they didn't do that, and it was bizarre to me. I mean,
Well,
like
they're not at the point, and they're not structured this way. The way they were when we snot talked them last year, which is you can't stop it. It's coming left. It's coming right. We're going to run over you. Going to run around you. We're going to pass it over your head. Lamar's too fast. Lamar's too good. Lamar reads defenses. They're protecting him. He's stepping up. He's seeing the field well. He's elusive. You can't chase him. You can't catch him. You can't tackle Derrick Henry. You can't stop this two tight end monster. Say Flowers runs these perfect routes. They're going to get him the ball in space. Like all of those things. And that's not even mentioning Bateman or, by the way, Hopkins just I marvel at Hopkins even on plays where they have penalties and he doesn't get the credit for that. But I marvel. I mean, he's beautiful to watch. He really is. Above and beyond Odell Beckham. Like this is as good as it gets. Where every time the ball goes up, it feels like he's going to come down with it. But all of these assets that the offense has, or we perceive them as having. Pro Bowl center out of Iowa, on the come right tackle out of Washington, left tackles put it all back together again, has found the fountain of really good, and 5 teams wanted to give him $100 million this offseason, but we figured it out. He's our guy. To I don't know. You tell me. I just went through all the optimism of the offense, and now it's week 4 and we're 1-3, and who's going
oh
where and why and what, and who's fumble prone, and Lamar's throwing helmets and throwing picks and putting the ball on the ground too.
yeah, I mean, first of all, I do want to bring a little bit of balance to this. As of assuming the Monday night game doesn't have a team scoring 80 points or something like that, like they're 3rd in the league in points scored. I mean, it's not as though but it's the identity of it. It's real for me. It's a case of the sum not being as great as the parts right now, whereas you kind of want it to be the opposite of that. I mean, like 2 years ago, their offense was very much a sum is greater than the parts because they didn't have a stud running back, and Lamar didn't put up like video game numbers, but they were just very efficient, right? Everything they kind of drilled down on what they did well, and they did it really, really well. Whereas this has been much more of like a high variance offense that it's had stretches where it's just been unbelievable, like they did in Buffalo through the first 50 minutes of that game. But then they've had stretches where, Derrick Henry fumbles the ball, right? And I mean, if there's a silver lining, Derrick Henry didn't fumble on Sunday, right? I meant to lead with that as a moment to, kind of see lighten the mood a little bit. But it's just it goes back to what I said. Like, what's their identity right now? They've scored a lot of points. It's not as though that their offense has been horrendous or anything like that, but it's just been like very just very two-faced, very, like I said, high variance where when it's great, but it's also had some really bad lows. I mean, you go back to the first half of the Cleveland game. Browns have a good defense.
Well, the
We can
lows are
acknowledge
3 and
that.
out. The lows
Right.
are literally 3 and out, and we're punting, and there is no drive. It's not half a drive. You put half a drive together, you go for it on 4th down, you convert, you move, you kick a field goal, you get points, whatever you
Yeah.
do. I would say that the difference in all of this, and this is where, I had my awakening back in Carson, California 7 years ago when they're running around out there. It's just first down efficiency. Just how incredible they were at first down, which kept the ball away from you. And you know, Lamar would run 48 yards and it would be a 6-play drive, 7, always 7, sometimes 8 if they were frisky, right? They wanted to do a 2-pointer. So you were getting the ball back down 7 every single time they touched the ball. And it was a matter of whether, was it going to be 11 plays and is it going to be water torture in 7 minutes and dink and dank and dunk? And Lamar 8 yards off tackle, 2nd and 2. They were always living in second and short, and first downs were amazing. And when they get off schedule in that way, in any way, you know, they're pedestrian at second and six, and certainly second and nine, and second and 12, and second and 15, or whatever.
As
Second
most
and one, and
offenses
two, and
are.
three.
Yeah.
Right. Second and one, and two, and three are beautiful, and they're not in that anymore.
Well,
That doesn't live here right now.
but that's why I keep going back to, I'm a broken record about this. They were in 3rd and 3. And and whether that it certainly wasn't 3rd and 1 like Nance and Romo were saying, and even CBS had, like, their spotter had to, they kept saying it was 3rd and 1. You could see it was 3 yards or at least 2.5 yards. But th- that's not a running situation. Especially when like you want to get 7 here because you're down 17 points at that point in time. I mean, it's just that was just weird to me. It was very bizarre to me that they went in the direction they did there. And soon the game was out of hand, not long thereafter. But yeah, look, again, they put points up, and there was an empty calorie. I mean, good for Justice Hill at the end of the game, but that was an empty calorie touchdown. In the same way, they had an empty calorie touchdown at the end last week, which forced an onside kick. But again, Detroit,
Yeah, the
Detroit was very much
record's the only thing that really matters.
so.
But yeah, I'm with
Well,
you.
no, well, we have to talk about more than the record because
Padding out stats, I'm saying, just
sure.
in the case
Yeah.
of making the game making the yardage look better on a 74-yard play or whatever it was, right?
But we've, they scored 40 points against Buffalo, right? I mean, they scored 41 against Cleveland. I mean, even last week, and okay, even throw out the last touchdown, at 23. For me, again, it's really been these last 6 quarters. I mean, even that Detroit game, it was tied at halftime. I mean, their defense was having its issues. There's no doubt about it, but it's not as though they weren't in the game. But just the way this has gone over these last 6 quarters in terms of how they've played across the board. And then when you throw the injuries into it on top of that, I mean, it gets scary. I mean, it's unnerving right now. I mean, I know the live stream, the audio wasn't working, so a lot of fans missed out on seeing that, right after the game if they could stomach watching and listening to it. But I mean, they're shell shocked right now, as they should be, right? I mean, like I said, even I picked Kansas City to win. I didn't pick them to win like this, right? I mean, I was surprised by this. I mean, this was, you mentioned, the last time they had a game like this. They had a game early in 21 when Cincinnati came to town and beat them pretty good. But even that you could kind of point to the secondary. Jamar
Yeah, but
Chase
this
went nuts.
feels different with Mahomes. It feels
because it's
different
Kansas City.
but it's
Sure.
also further along in how many chapters in
Sure.
this battle that they've lost now to Kansas City, and also where they are at 1-3, and also with Lamar with ice on his hamstring
Sure.
and out of the game in the third quarter, which gives them no chance. But then on top of all of that, Ronnie Stanley, Roquan Smith, Marlon Humphrey, we know where we are with the entire defensive line. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's break. We're going to talk more about all this. We'll come back. We're going to talk individually about the defense and Mahomes and the Chiefs coming to life, and even a little bit of the Steelers and this and that. He's Luke. He's Baltimore Luke. We're just getting going with Purple Therapy. We have a whole week. They play on schedule at 1 o'clock next week against the Houston Texans. Luke will be out in Owings Mills all week. On Wednesday, I will be at Fadley's at Lexington Market, and it's just been like the whole baseball thing stinking in August and September has kind of kept me out of Fadley's the way I'd like to be down there eating shrimp salad, eating fried oysters, going to playoff games this week. Red Sox, Yankees are going on. Cubs and the Padres are getting together. It's like 1984 all over again. Give me the warm baseball fuzzies. So I'll be watching some baseball this week. We'll also be bringing the Maryland Lottery scratch-offs, the Ravens scratch-offs down to Fadley's this week. We're going to be at Costas next week. I'm putting other shows together in different Cocos. We're going to be there in November because we couldn't do the end of October. It was a little bit of a thing. So all of our sponsors hanging in there. After what we went through with the baseball season, to think that this is where we are right now at 1-3, I'm going to need to towel off, and I'm trying to pull the spirits of John Stedman and Charlie Ekman down onto me right now, and even John Feinstein, and just try to stay sane. And I don't just mean what's going on in Washington, D.C. I'm Nestor. He's Luke. We got plenty of football ahead. We're Baltimore Positive. Stay with us.